Hi, I'm Ryan, and normally these videos begin with a cold open. I say something kind of witty to introduce the video. Then I do the hi, I'm Ryan, and welcome to Ball in Europe. We normally have my backdrop. It's all very fun, colourful. It's all talking about basketball. And in a way we are talking about basketball today, but more importantly we're talking about ourselves. I'm going to talk about myself, and this is obviously inspired in terms of me deciding this is the time to do this by not so much what happened, but more the response. And that is Kevin Love's wonderful and well ideated, I suppose, terrible English, response to what happened with Kyle Singler's unfortunate and worrying, concerning, obviously, post on Instagram. For those of you who aren't aware, it's obviously out there online, but Love, anyway, his immediate response was one of support, of care, of how to possibly help. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, about not so much about those of us who deal with issues, I will talk about those in a second, but about you who might know someone or might not be aware you know somebody, because you definitely know somebody, trust me, who is dealing with some sort of mental crisis or the likes, to understand, I suppose, at least from my perspective, how they can operate, how they can be so well hidden without trying to hide them, and I suppose, what you can do with us and how you can, obviously lead them towards the professional care they need. And yeah, so I'm going to give you some context. Those of you who know me know I travel all over the world, mostly Europe, but I've been to other places to cover basketball, to tell basketball stories. I do the same in other areas. I'm 20 years as a technology journalist. I've covered business for the same period. I've covered elections. I've covered major world events that are far bigger than a basketball game. And I'm largely a confident, I've been written down in at least one public relations company brief on me as gregarious, friendly guy. Like, that's who I am. I like to talk to people. I like to engage. And most of all, I like to tell stories. And I also get anxiety attacks. And they can often come out of nowhere with no obvious trigger. And I was diagnosed about, I think it's 13 years ago now, with anxiety-based depression, which has explained it a lot to me. And obviously learned since then that I'm on the spectrum and that I, can manage that as well. As you can see, I've done pretty well. I'm 20 years in journalism, a very people-first business, a very storytelling business, and I get to tell some extraordinary stories. I get to meet some extraordinary people, and again, this is the thing. I am confident, and this isn't just me saying it, it's my natural way. I feel like new challenges are kind of fun. Let's see how they go. And going in with an element of the unexpected is extremely appealing to me in life. So when I have that, it's like, well, I think that's almost, in a way, the challenge with the anxiety. So some of you may be aware from what I posted, I was in Greece last week to cover the derby. We'll have a video from the travel to that coming up on Friday, and a documentary based around that next year. And while it isn't sounding obviously pertinent now, they are when you realise that I was there Monday through Friday and left Saturday morning. On both the Tuesday and the Thursday mornings of that week, I had severe anxiety attacks. I woke up in my bed and was effectively incapable of functioning. And I've had them before, and they've been a part of my life. They aren't too often. Now, I haven't had two in a week in a long time, and I know, in a way, what caused them, and it wasn't being overstimulated, which is a classic way of doing it, by the way, but it is one to keep an eye out for. It wasn't from partying too hard or anything like that. I wish it was. It was indeed from cumulative overwork. I am self-employed, and sometimes I push myself far beyond my own limits, and that's essentially what happened. Like the Monday, obviously I'd landed and my body figured, because the body knows I was ahead in what I needed to do, and so everything, that was like, it's safe now for things to not work. And that's how my body reacted. It felt it was safe for things to not work, and I had a severe anxiety attack. And so Wednesday was a great day, normal, got lots of work done, went to the Peristeri game, met a good friend, and had a quiet evening, to be honest. I was home by a reasonably early hour and went to bed. I watched a bit of a football game, but nothing more than that, And there was no reason for me to think, essentially, that there was going to be any issue on Thursday, aside from the bed obviously being awful in my hotel. And Thursday morning, I wake up, and it's not as bad as the Tuesday one, but it's still pretty awful. And to explain how it impacts, I suppose, what I'm getting to, is a paralysis of function, as in I have anxiety about doing anything, like literally anything beyond going to the bathroom is kind of scary to me. The bed, the lying down, that is essentially how I, in that moment of incoherent panic, cope. Now, there are things to break me out of it, like, for example, if I have enormous amount of work to do, my body realizes it can't have that moment there and then, and that comes in. Obviously, it isn't the healthiest alternative, but it is just what I know what happens. But at the same time, it's, a thing I have to deal with on a regular basis. And that Thursday even, I was going out to the Panathinaikos practice to interview a player, ended up being Matthias Lesor. He was wonderful, and I had been in contact with Apostolos from Panathinaikos in the days and weeks before the game to arrange getting an interview with that player for the documentary I mentioned earlier. And I was out of the house for about an hour before I had to absolutely go to the OACA. And 3 times I had written out a draft of a text apologising to Apostolos that I wouldn't be able to make it, because I still wasn't there mentally, broken through the anxiety that I felt capable of being seen by anyone who knew of my existence. I had gotten through the point where strangers could see me and I wasn't afraid, but that extra level, there was nothing to fear from Apostolos. There was nothing to fear from Panathinaikos. If we're thinking rationally, there was nothing to fear from anybody. They're all going to be understanding people. But my body was, of course, reacting otherwise. And I had to essentially rationalise it to myself. And eventually, obviously, I got in the cab and I made my way out to OACA, had a great interview, and everything went fine. And I was grand for the rest of the evening. But here's where I'm really trying to get to with you all. Because again, this isn't me trying to get you to feel sorry for me. Don't. Because here's the thing. I am extremely lucky. I have a great life. I've done a lot for myself, but I've had a lot of friends who've helped me out along the way. You all know I've got a wonderful partner, for those of you who visited us, and Shabangi has been phenomenal to me throughout all the time they've known me, and the near 5 years we are together, is well aware of this and has been there for me through these. And these attacks are less common. They don't happen that often. It's really only a couple of years I have to deal with it, and they're only for a few hours at a time, but they are something I have to be conscious of, be aware that they could interfere with my life. Now, I have 2 approaches to that. Do I either live worrying that they're going to happen, or do I live accepting that there will be a time where they happen and I learn to deal with it? And the second is obviously the healthier. And I find a way. And we find a way. But I find that way quite often because I have people that love me in my life, people that help me, and people that understand, more importantly than anything else. And also, over time, it's taken me a while, learned to be less hard on myself in terms of feeling that I'm not getting as much work done as I should when I'm ploughing through quite a lot. And so that's, I suppose, what I'm trying to get through is the hard part, though, is not really for me, because I know what I need to do. Don't get me wrong, it's still work, and there's still things that are daunting and scary. But the hard part isn't for me. The hard part is having for you on that other side. Because you're wondering, how can I help? And that was what I was reading from Kevin Love's post. It was how can I help? Was his first reaction of thought. And to be honest, that's what I'm trying to get through. When someone has a disturbing moment, or a moment that disturbs you, when somebody has and we don't have to go with something as disturbing as what we saw with Kyle, and obviously hoping that he gets all the help he can possibly get, and I'm sure people are out there doing stuff for him, but you won't always know that person in your life is dealing with stuff like this, knows or may not have the tools, or not have got the help like I got in previous years to help me to be able to make sure this is a condition I can manage and live with and live a good life with. It doesn't interrupt my life in a real basis. Everything I needed to do in Athens and wanted to do in Athens was done. The only exception was I didn't go up to see the Acropolis, but I've seen it before, so it wasn't a big loss in life. And I'm sure I'll see it again because I plan on being over in Greece again, assuming there's playoff games there. So, in terms of what should be done, what had to be done, it went fine. And that's the thing. It's the fear of the moment is what often gets to us. And don't assume the person you're dealing with is rational, but assume they are trying to rationalize, is what I would say. But obviously as well, remember, you are not a mental health professional, which I probably should have topped this off with, but I figured it was going to be obvious if you watch this through. But what you are is someone that cares about them. And so that's why the first thing, your first thought, never even saying to them, is, how can I help? That's what I'm trying to get across, is try and make sure your first action is, how can I help? Because if you start with that, you're not going to panic as much, or certainly less likely to panic, and you're also going to be more focused on a solution to the outcome. And believe me, I know from my situation, solution-oriented outcomes is exactly what it's about. It's about moving me from that state of anxiety to this. And like, I was nervous for about, I meant to record this about 2 hours before I did. Now, in fairness, 30 minutes of what got in the way was actual other work. But the other hour and a half was me being anxious about even recording something like this. Even within me now, there's still a little tinge of, should I be telling this? But yeah, I feel I should, because when I think about it, I got like nephews, and many of them are, you know, well, they pretty much all are in their 20s / in their 30s now. I'm thinking, well, they could be dads soon. You know, I got a niece as well in her 20s, could be mom soon. And, you know, they're also people out, like, you know, living their lives, like, you know, doing what they do. And I'm thinking, if, you know, their hyper-confident uncle can't go out and tell people, listen, I'm dealing with stuff, like, you know, what sort of example am I setting for them? I want them to know it's okay to talk about this stuff. So yeah, you know, it is. It's absolutely fine to talk about this stuff. And if you're worried about your friend, like, your first thought should be, how can I help? And I'm going to finish, though, for those who are dealing with stuff or aren't sure what they're dealing with, they haven't gotten the help yet. And it's going to, oddly, because normally at the end of these videos, I do the whole like, share, subscribe stuff. That's not really what I should be doing right now, let's be honest. Instead, I'm going to go to one of the greatest fictional philosophers of all time, Mr. Rocky Balboa. And because I've always, that speech he gives to his son in the movie always hits me so well. It's like, nothing hits harder than life. And it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. But also know that you don't have to take it all, that you can find help, you can find people who can support you, and there are people who love you out there. And as we saw with Kyle Singler, Kevin Love, the first thing he did was, well, live up to his surname, showed love, and his first thought was, how can I help? And that's what I want you to do. I want your first thought when you see someone you know or connected to in any way in that sort of personal trouble. Ask yourself, how can I help? I'll link obviously to a few mental health related charities or places in the description, but obviously I'm based in Ireland, so I won't have for all the various countries that are wonderful enough to come to this, but I do urge you, if you are dealing with anything, to look for them. They are very easy to find on the internet. So until next time, when we're back with normal service on Friday, I will see you soon.